Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. Our guest today is interesting. Iaroslav Rybakov. Now, you don't have to remember everything, but we'll just call him Iaroslav. So when he graduated in engineering, Iaroslav experienced firsthand the peculiarities of corporate life. He knew that he was 25 years old and he knew that field wasn't for him, but had no clue what to do next. Instead of just finding another job, he used his background to painstakingly engineer his own life and figure out what he truly wanted. So what did you do? You know, you're 30 years old, you graduated college, and you don't know what to do. So what did you do? I mean, you did something to get here because you're here now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So back then I was 25, and as you mentioned, I had no clue what to do with my life and my engineering degree. Engineering wasn't for me, and I knew that I wanted to work with people rather than machines. So I refused the first and only engineering job offer I ever got. That was $65,000 a year down the drain, I believe. And instead, I enrolled in the military because my rationale back then was, well, if when you want to work with people, you would rather be a manager, but no one hires 25-year-old managers to do anything, well, except the military. So I ended up digging trenches, not sleeping for weeks at a time, and being paid the equivalent of $5 an hour for doing all that. It was a miserable experience at times, but it was a very rewarding experience in the long run, because it taught me a lot of the lessons that I was missing in leadership, in management, in influencing people, in motivating people. And it paid off because by the age of 29, I was a project manager in the Army responsible for projects over $3 million, over 140, with teams of over 140 people. And so I was looking at that process, and I was thinking to myself, well, how did I get here? And the simple answer with hindsight, it was, I chose the hard but the right path for me rather than the easy path, which if everyone else was telling me to do, which was to go into engineering. And from 2014 on, I was also very heavily involved in the personal development space. So I was giving talks, giving private talks, running seminars for a variety of topics on in the personal development space. And so one thing kind of led to another, and I started questioning myself why we make the career decisions that we do, especially young people, especially people that are pushed into going to school, getting good grades, then graduating, getting their first jobs, and then by the age of 25, 30, just like I was, they end up in a situation where they ask themselves, why am I doing this? And they can't answer that question. So I started what I call my business, my coaching business, Life Engineering, based on the premise that there's better ways of making life and career decisions rather than just hunches or what other people want you to do.
Well, that is extraordinary, especially doing it so young, because people don't know how to do this until they're like midlife, closer to 50.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, most of them have been in the corporate world, let's say, and then they're there 20 years and they go, this isn't for me, I want to get out. And then they have to start all over again. And I don't know who it's harder for, but I think it might be a little bit harder for the older dude who's, you 20 years from now to,
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. To just, okay, what do I do now? I've got a wife. I've got 4 kids. I've got this. I've got that. I've got responsibilities. And then you go and you try to make it happen and it doesn't. Or it does, if you make it happen. You might be making the same amount of money, but what are you doing? And how are you? How
I understand. And the problem with also people in their 40s and 50s is that they've already spent their 40s and their 30s doing something that doesn't necessarily bring them happiness and fulfillment. They just assumed that this is what was right for them because that's what everyone else does.
Right. And I think that I don't know where you're from in Europe, but I think that Europeans are generally more inclined to do this. They take, risks. And I think that I've spoken to many recently, some women recently, and they just step into it. They just go right for it. They go for the big stuff. They go for everything right away, and I think that's what you're doing. And I think that that's important. And I think that people, Americans, or Canadians, as you are, but, North Americans has that, just they get lazy, by and large, there's a laziness factor there. And I think that there needs to be more push to this.
There's multiple things here that I think influence in how we as North Americans go about making these decisions, and I can talk about that if you want.
Well, yeah, talk about that for a couple of minutes and see where it goes.
Okay. First of all, there's I've already said this, but there's this assumption inherent in the educational system that once you graduate from college, that you'll be set for life and that you'll live happily ever after. It just doesn't happen this way. What ends up happening a lot is people start working and don't know why they're there, what kind of impact they're having, and where are they going. They just enter a monotone routine where their days and their weeks and their months and their years all kind of blend together, and they wake up at 40, 45 and ask themselves the existential questions that no one asked them. For example, a couple of these questions that I do ask my clients is, what kind of person do you want to become? What kind of impact do you want to have? What's your life purpose? What are your values? What's important to you? And answering all these questions helps them make the right decisions, both career-wise, but also life-wise. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with corporate America. I just think that when we end up in corporate America for the wrong reasons, that's when it stings the most. And most of us never actually ask themselves, why do we do the things we do? I'll give you a specific example. The reason I do coaching is because I get a kick out of inspiring people. And so it's an easy, I don't want to say easy, it's a straightforward way that I found that I could help people live their full potential, so to speak. But I could do this in a lot of different ways. I could be a teacher. I could be a trainer of professionals. I could do the same thing in engineering and become an expert in a field and then train people in that field so that they could better their job. But once I know why I do this, the choices in front of me become much clearer. And so you see this happening in my clients, where once they can answer why they live and what inspires them, maybe the answer is corporate America in a specific field doing a specific thing. Mm-hmm. But if you ended up there de facto by default without actually having a choice, that's when people have regrets. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I'm not sure where I read this, but that quote will stay with me forever. There was some author in some book. I'm sorry, I can't be more precise.
That's all right. Don't worry about
it. Forwarded this idea that when you ask people what is happiness, and you ask this question to North Americans, to Europeans, and to Asians, you get very different answers. And you see North Americans saying, well, happiness is having means, having independence, having freedom, having houses, cars, whatever it is. And you see Europeans and Asians answering that happiness is sharing that happiness or your happy feelings with other people. So there's this communal aspect that we have lost, I think, in North American culture, that says happiness is sharing your journey, sharing your experiences, sharing your hardships, whatever it is, with other people, and helping the group become happier as a result, not just the individual. And of course, in that survey, Americans ended up being much less happy than the rest of the world. So I think there's something incredibly powerful in trying to use your gifts, your skills, your strengths to help other people, to bring them on the same journey, to inspire them, to lead them, to create teams, to create visions for the future, and so on, and make it into a communal goal of finding happiness, fulfillment, and not just a personal goal.
That's okay. That's profound and insightful, but also true. It's amazing how we, as North Americans, Canada and the United States, are just talking about our own personal happiness, fulfillment in a job. We're not talking about sharing this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem, because all I've listened to recently are a lot of people talking about community. And, when I ask them what community is, they give me whatever answer, but it's like they're not using their gifts for community.
No,
they're not.
No.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to have to think about this a little bit more after the show, but because it's insightful that you have this thought, because you're saying that it's
I think it's inherent into our biology, actually. Like the first time I heard this, I thought, okay, like, sure, whatever. This is just something to make you feel good. But then I actually experienced something in the military that kind of cemented this idea in me, where the first thing that you learn in the Army, and the Army is an incredibly effective organization, but not for the reason we think. They don't have the best equipment. They don't have the best people necessarily. They don't have the right bureaucratic structures. But the one thing they have is that they teach you, the first thing they teach you on basic is that you better look out after your buddy besides you. And the reason they do this is because when you're tired, when you're wet, hungry, exhausted, you haven't slept in days, you basically have a choice at that moment. You can either focus in your own pain and say, poor me, why am I here? Why am I doing this? This is so hard. Or you can focus your attention on the person besides you that is in exactly the same situation, living through exactly the same thing. But if you ask the question, how can I help him, instead of how can I help myself, that's when there's something in our psychology, biology, I don't know what it is, that gives you strength to help that other person that you wouldn't have had to help yourself. And multiply that across multiple people, teams, organizations. That's how you get, I believe, a sum total that is bigger than the sum of its parts. That's when we as people, as communal creatures, as social creatures, are driven to better ourselves, to better our abilities, not to help ourselves necessarily, but to help others.
Yes. And it's interesting how it is different. But you're the first person that has spoken about this, but also you're probably the first person I've brought it up to so directly, how North Americans, U.S. and Canada, have a distinct difference from Europeans. And then you're putting Asians in there as well. But they think of other people. How will all of this affect others? And I'm sitting here stunned, going, with all the 200 some odd episodes that I've had, nobody else has brought it up so specifically as you have, that we are not necessarily concerned with other people, even though, good God, how many people have been in the military that are listening to this show, or that live, that are alive. So they know that.
I agree, and it's something we take for granted. Even in the Army, it's something we take for granted. It's been so ingrained into our psyches that, okay, here's your buddy, he's your inseparable, you do everything with him. But I'm not sure why not, but no one actually extrapolated this to why does it work? What kind of impacts does it have? And you see this phenomenon in different books, in different authors, in different philosophies. But the thing that I like to bring up specifically with my clients is that, look, you're in a specific peculiar situation. You're 30 years old. You're not sure why you're doing engineering, law, software, whatever it is. Well, if you want to move forward, the next step, yes, it is a little bit about your success, your happiness. But if you want to get there, get to a sense of fulfillment, of self-actualization, then you have to think more broadly. How can you get other people into your movement? What else do you want to accomplish? How does it matter for others? And then, and only then, I believe we can be part of something bigger. And that's what inspires us.
So tell me about any of your clients that have used whatever you've spoken about, you're talking about today, and broadened it into the community. Community.
Yeah. I have last year I coached a young sports athlete. He's probably below 20s. So, and he had his dream of being a soccer player, a professional soccer player. But he had, for whatever reason, he ended up in computer science. And then through our work together, we kind of figured out that his purpose was to go push his limits to the absolute maximum. That's what drove him into professional sports, and that's what drives him on a day-to-day basis. But computer science is just a practical way of him of earning a living at this point. And so, but everything else that gives him his life meaning has to do with pushing limits, with physical performance, with psychological toughness, and so on and so on. And so what he does right now is, besides his studies and job as a computer scientist, he works with people, he coaches people, he gives talks and tries to push others into the same direction of inspiration. So instead of having your mom or whoever say, no, you can't do this, why you do this is stupid, he tries to encourage people and to go much, much further in their own goals, in their own dreams, for whatever reason. He gets a kick out of that. So in 10 years, let's say, he will be a professional, maybe he will be a professional soccer player, but he for sure will be a professional computer scientist. But that's just the practical way for him to earn money. But that's not, he doesn't have to identify with that. He can do something else that gives him meaning. And you see this split between who he is and who, like, what skills his computer science degree gives him and what he actually likes doing, what brings him satisfaction.
And how will it benefit others?
It benefits directly the people who are around him.
Okay.
So the people that he interacts with, the people that he encourages, that he pushes into professional sports, that he coaches in soccer, that he coaches in chess, that he coaches in whatever it is that he will do with that gift, he won't do it because it's in his financial benefit. He will do it just because it makes him feel good and it pushes others to be just as inspiring as he is. I thought that for 20-something years old, he was absolutely incredible. He just had this drive, this passion, and I absolutely love working with him. Okay.
I'm taking this all in because even though it's a different perspective, it's, as I said, before, it's not one that I've heard of. The how to create a community out of you're choosing something to do. You're choosing to be a coach as opposed to being an employee. And
yeah, exactly.
Yes. All right.
So I just want to nuance here the things that I said. Again, there's nothing wrong in being an employee. There's nothing wrong with making a living out of whatever it is that you decide to do for practical reasons. I'm just saying that this is not where you will find happiness and fulfillment. The feeling that you get when you're stuck at work and you're not sure why you're there is not because the work is bad. It's just because your life doesn't have meaning, and this is where you have to work on more specifically what brings you inspiration, what brings you fulfillment, what brings you happiness. And this is usually not related to what you do on a daily basis. So there's multiple ways how you can do this. You can either find a job where you feel all these things because you have direct impact on people. So teachers, nurses, like all these stereotypical careers that help people. But if that's not your skills, if you don't want to retrain in those careers, or if you don't like the politics that go with these careers and that's not for you, that's fine. There's multiple other options. You can have any kind of career and start a side hustle or side business as a coach, as a chess coach, teaching kids how to swim, for example. You can start a full-time business or do multiple part-time jobs that kind of each of them bring you whatever it is that you need to feel happy and fulfilled. There's a huge gap right now between what people think they could do and what they can actually do, especially since COVID. The way we work, the work culture, and the employee-employer relationship and balance has been shifted massively. And so since 2020, there's a lot more options on the table for you to express your work purpose, values, however you want your life. And this is what life engineering is about, is how do you balance all of these?
All right. Well, I want to make sure everybody goes to your website at lifeengineering.coach. That's lifeengineering.coach. And read his blog and sign up. Excuse me. I'll have to edit that out. Sign up for his okay.
You can read my blog. If you like what you see, you can sign up for a free session. Every newcomer, I do 2 hours of coaching with them to see what your issues, if you want, see what your issues and how I can help, basically. And it's 2 hours. You're getting 100% value, 0% of the cost. And
that's a long time.
That's a very long time, but I believe in
you could change
building
the
a
world
relationship
in
with
2
people.
hours.
Sorry?
I mean, you could change the world in 2 hours.
You can change the world in 2 hours, and I hope to believe that's what my clients get out of this. A changed world.
Yes. Okay. But I want you to hear again what he said. What he's talking about is powerful, and it's really the opportunity to change the way everybody thinks, to enroll people. Well, maybe that word isn't the right word, but have people enrolled in your life. And when you create a community around it, you have more people there, not just I'm going to do this and this is going to happen to me and I'm going to make money and I'm going to have all these friends. But when you say I'm enrolling people to be a part of my life, that's a different story, because you've exponentially just grown the whole thing, so you have that many people. All right. So how else can they get in touch with you? I guess that's it. Lifeengineering.coach.
Lifeengineering.coach. I'm on Instagram also, lifeengineering.coach. I'm on Facebook as well, lifeengineering.coach. Any of these ways, just send me a DM, and if you need to talk, we'll talk.
Yes, because this is all on my website, on his page, on my website, Iaroslav Rybakov. Rybakov?
Yes, Iaroslav Rybakov.
Rybakov, okay. Well, thank you, dear, for being here today. This has been really powerful, and I think that you're going to really make people think a little bit about their jobs now and what they're doing and what they're doing.
Hope so.
Yes, well, you are. So I thank you for being here today. And
thank you so much, Joanne.
Yes, and I thank my listeners for listening. Take care, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.